Hello everyone, thank you for joining in this morning. We're about to start our webinar from Alta Labs in about a couple of minutes. Let's just check first if you can hear us correctly and if you can see the screen correctly. We're going to be using the question panel. This is a panel that you have on the right side of your screen. So please send us any comment or questions throughout the question panel through the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A panel to answer all of your questions. So if you can let us know if you can hear us loud and clear so we can start our webinar. Mr. Brian, thank you. All right. So we're just gonna wait 1 more minute for everyone to join in and then we'll be ready to start. A quick reminder is that this webinar will be recorded and we're going to be sending it to your email right after the webinar. As well, we're going to upload it to our YouTube channel, EPCOM USA. So please keep checking our YouTube channel and website for the future sessions as recording from our webinars. All right, I think now it's 8:05, so now we're ready to start. So hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, Enterprise Wi-Fi 6 Access Points and Switches with Cloud Management. The quick reminder, this webinar will be recorded and I would like to welcome Dallin Kaufman from Alta Labs as well as Tony Rasabong from Alta Labs, who will be our panelists for today's webinar. Please send us all of your questions during the webinar, and at the end, we'll have the Q&A to answer all of your questions. Darling, good morning.
Hey, good morning. You guys can hear me okay still, right?
Yes, totally. We can hear you.
Perfect. Awesome. So yes, my name is Dallin Kaufman. I'm the VP of Sales and Business Development at Alta Labs. And then also we have Tony Rasavong as well, who's our Director of Business Development. Tony, are you still there? Looks like
I
Tony,
am. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Anything you want to say to introduce yourself, Tony, or you want me to just go ahead and jump in?
Sure, I'll quickly introduce myself. Tony Rasavong, as he mentioned. I've been in the wireless networking industry for about 16 years, starting way back with selling or just at antennas in general at Pacific Wireless. Worked for a distributor for 6 years. I worked at Ubiquity for close to 9 Alta Labs. So I'm super excited to tell you guys about our product.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. So I'll just jump right in. I know that we don't have a lot of time, and we want to make sure we have also some time for you guys to ask any questions and near the end as well. And also, I think as mentioned, you can also post questions in the chat, and we can try and address them as we go if needed as well. So yeah, to start, Alta Labs is as you know, is a brand new company, a brand new brand here in this space, in the Wi-Fi space. For whatever reason, there doesn't seem to be a lot of new entries into this market, not a lot of new companies or brands that are entering the space. It tends to be just kind of the same players that have been around for the last 15, 20 years that just continue to kind of go round and around and maybe introduce a new brand, but it's kind of all the same players. And ultimately, we felt like there was a need for a new player to enter the space and provide some new disruption, some new ways of thinking about things, and some innovation. And that's kind of the idea behind Alta Labs. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to adjust. There we go. Just switch to the next slide. In fact, I'm going to jump to the next one as well. So while we are new in the space, and like I said, we feel like we can use that to our advantage to provide some innovative ideas, some disruption to the market. But we are not inexperienced. So while founded essentially this year, well, last year, but we're really launching this year, and even within the last month is when our distributors have been receiving product. So you're really catching us at the beginning stages of this project in some ways, but the players behind this project have been around in the space for a long time. Tony mentioned, right, his experience in the networking world for quite a while, and myself also have been in the space for some time. Importantly, we have guys on the product side, on the marketing side, and the support side also who have been in the networking space for, in some cases, decades. It's kind of an open secret that a lot of our experience in the space has come from our previous employer, Ubiquity. Not all of us have come from Ubiquity. Tony mentioned he did. I also spent about 5 or 6 years at Ubiquity. In my time there, I was managing the European market, overseeing the distributors and business development there in that market. And we have several other players kind of on the business side also that gained experience there. And more importantly, like I said, on the product side, our CTO, for example, his name is Jeff Hansen, and he was the lead UniFi engineer at Ubiquity for I think about 7 years or so. And I just highlight that experience just because I think that's particularly important in this space. The market that we're trying to compete in and make sure that our products are successful in is that SMB market, small, medium-sized businesses. And UniFi has done a great job in that space for a long period of time. And we still think that they have great products and they do a great job, but there are some pain points as well. And so we feel like the experience that we've gained in our time at Ubiquity allows us to understand the advantages that a solution like UniFi has, where they've been successful. In a lot of ways, Ubiquity's success has been a mystery to some of the other brands, like Cisco and TP-Link and others have tried to kind of duplicate or provide a solution that could compete in this space as well, but have done so fairly ineffectively and have missed kind of important pieces. And so we're in a position where we understand what's made Ubiquity and made UniFi successful, but also understand some of the real pain points that exist with their solution and feel like we can step in and provide a solution that competes in that same space. Of course, we want to see Ubiquity and UniFi continue to be successful. I think as they're successful, that the whole market can continue to be successful as well. But overall, we feel like there's room for a competitor, room for a new player, like I said, in this space who does things a little bit differently. And that'll be an important point for us as we want to make sure that our solution stands on its own, that we have our own unique features, the products stand on its own, right? And this isn't just some project from a group of former Ubiquity employees. So, and the other thing I should note as well, in terms of our experience, we actually are backed by a parent company by the name of SVT, or Sound Vision Technologies. And SVT has been around for over 20 plus years in the manufacturing space, primarily in the Pro AV space. They've been manufacturing speakers and amplifiers in the kind of the custom install space for about the last 20 years. Probably one of the most important things to note about SVT is the company itself was actually started by a group of installers who were frustrated with dealing with manufacturers that didn't really have their interests at heart, right? Didn't really understand what it was like to install an AV solution or even a networking solution, right? And so they wanted to create a brand that was for installers by installers, is kind of the idea behind the brand. And so that DNA, I think, has of kind of installer-centric solutions has also come to play here with the Alta solution as well. So Alta Labs, right, is a separate brand from kind of the other brands that have been a part of the Sound Vision market for the last 20 years. Obviously, different space than the AV space. but we've been able to take that same experience that we've had, like I said, manufacturing products for the last 20 years, and that installer-centric mindset, and roll it over here to Alta Labs as well. With that, I'll just mention a few kind of high-level points of emphasis or things that we focus on as a brand, and then I want to jump into the products themselves, right? And give you guys an overview of the products, and also spend a little bit of time on the controller so you guys can get a feel for some of the unique features that we offer before we turn it over to everyone else for some questions. So on the top of this list, you'll see is reliability, or stability would be another word we could have used here as well. This was a really important focus for us as a brand. We wanted to make sure that not only did we provide a solution that was really easy to use, right, and have really good performance, but also make sure that we have that reliability or stability issue resolved as well. We've seen that from our experience with some other brands as well, that that sometimes with the focus being so much on providing an easy to use solution, that sometimes there can be some bugs or stability issues that sneak in and cause some problems. And we wanted to make sure that that was never the case with our solution. In some ways, reliability might be kind of a hard argument to make for a new company. We understand that we have yet to kind of prove ourselves here in this space. And even though, as I mentioned before, right, we're kind of the very beginning phase of our launch, we've had products now in the market, though, with beta testers and ourselves testing the product really for about the last year and a half, that we've been thoroughly testing the products to make sure there's no bugs or issues. We've had over 500 access points deployed now in the market for at least the last 6 months and haven't had a single failure. And most importantly, like I said, it comes back to our focus at the top, right? So our CTO, Jeff Hansen, as I mentioned, he has kind of a no crash policy. He's very, very detail oriented and wants to make sure that any update we roll out has no bugs, right? And if there is an issue, it's something that we resolve right away. And there's a strong commitment to that from our side. And like I said, it's really kind of at the top of our list of what we focus on. Secondly, I'll mention support. We put support from real people here. The idea behind that, right, is that ultimately, if you need to talk to someone from our side at Alta Labs, we want to be accessible to you guys and engage directly with you guys. So you can see that in a number of different ways. I'll show you guys here actually in a second our forum as well. We've created a very engaged forum, a community forum, where where those that have been using or testing out our products so far have been very engaged with us, and we've been very engaged with them also, right? We read every single post that comes in, respond to each one. We're getting a lot of engagement with those that are testing out our products. Many of them are very, very happy with what they're seeing, but of course also have ideas which things they want to see more of, and we love that. We've already implemented a number of ideas that have come in through our forum, right, feature requests, and have rolled those out into some of the updates that we've been providing the last couple of weeks. In addition to our forum, though, we do offer a very active support solution, so customers can come to our website and post questions directly in our chat. In addition to our kind of live chat functionality and email support that we offer, we even have a phone number ultimately listed on our website. I think most cases, right, installers and customers are great and fine with chat and community forums and things like that, and sometimes prefer that these days. But ultimately, if someone just needs to get a hold of us and they need to talk to someone, then we do have a phone number listed, which is unique in this space. The ability to provide kind of a free phone support solution as well from our side. Thirdly, performance. I already mentioned, obviously, the performance piece has to be there, and from you can spend some time on our forum to get a feel for what customers are saying about the performance of our solution. In general, what we're seeing is that our solution is kind of outperforming the competition in both speed and throughput, and as well as range as well. When I'll show you guys here an example of that here in just a minute. But you guys can also check out, there's been a number of important kind of influential YouTubers recently that have posted some reviews of our products, all of which have been very impressed with the performance of the solution and have talked about how it's up to par, if not better than anything else out there in the market. And all of them have also mentioned how impressive that is, given that we're a new company, right? This is our first generation of products. All the other brands out there, right? Other companies have multiple generations of products, right, to kind of get to where they're at. But with our kind of first generation of products, we've been able to produce a solution that's really solid and performs really well. Free training resources. If you go over and check out our YouTube channel, you can get a feel for that. But we've already, just within the last month, provided a good number of 2-3 minute clips of going through different features of our controller. We'll continue to provide a lot of free training resources from our side to make sure that everyone has as much information as they need to be successful with our products. And then lastly, I'll just mention, and I kind of alluded to this before, but being channel friendly is a huge focus for us. So you won't see, for example, like a direct web store coming from us. We really want to have all of our products move directly through a distribution channel and through our installers and sub-distributors, resellers, and make sure that everyone has a good experience in doing so, right? That there's the good communication from our side with our distribution channel, with our installers, and maybe most importantly, right, that there's good money to be made with our products, healthy margins, stable pricing. That's a huge focus for us, is just making sure that our distributors, our installers, everyone is able to be successful with our products and be profitable in the process as well. All right, so that being said, I'm actually going to jump out of the stack of slides though, and open up here just this web browser to show you guys the products. Before I jump into the products though, I actually do want to just briefly, as I mentioned, show you guys our forum. You can just go to forum.alta.inc if you guys haven't had a chance to check out the conversation that's going on there. But just as you can see here, I'll just quickly kind of scroll through here. You can see how even though we've launched really just in the last month, right, we've had a lot of engagement from users, a lot of users that are excited about what we're doing. And like I said, I want to provide input on the things that they're seeing, the good things, as well as some feature requests. There is a section right here. I'll come over here and show you. There's a features request section right here. Where you can come and post the things that you want to see from us, and then uplink or upvote other ideas that have been posted here as well. And like I said, this is going to be a really big focus for us, is making sure that we're engaged and in tune with what customers are saying about our products and things that they want to see. And then lastly, I'll just come over here too. Also, we posted a story section of the forum where customers can post examples of how our products are being used in different environments. You can see they were used here in this kind of castle-like tower here in the Netherlands. Just yesterday, this was shared. Some different home environments, as well as being installed in a bar, in a gym, and it's just great to see that, even like I said, though we've just started this project within the last month, that customers are already so excited about our products that they're using them in various environments at home and different business applications as well. I wanted to show briefly that this one is this story that was posted here, just does a good job of highlighting the performance piece that I mentioned before. Just visually, you can see here, this is a project that was done in the United States, here in Utah, where we're based. There was a project, I think this is kind of an outdoor swimming area, as well as a bunch of other things that are part of this facility. In this project, there was about 20 different access points. It was previously based on WiFi, and then they switched it over directly to Alta. It was a straight AP for AP switch, and you can see here kind of from the map, right, the heat map that's been done, the more color that exists on this after solution. showing the range of the solution, the range of our Alta access points is quite impressive. And like I said, is outperforming other brands in the market as well. All right, jumping in to the products. So we, at the moment, we essentially have 2 access points. I'm going to come over here to our website and then scroll down to this little diagram right here. Does a good job of showing kind of the differences between our 2 access points. So we have 2 access points to launch. We'll have 3 switches as well. I'll show you guys a brief introduction to the switches here in a minute. And then just so you guys know, we do have a good roadmap ahead of us of additional products that we'll add. We obviously don't want to stop at just 5 SKUs. We want to make sure there's a full platform of products that we can offer, a full solution. So we'll be adding a router next year, an on-premise or local premise-based controller. Right now, our solution is 100% cloud-based, but we do know that there are customers that prefer kind of a local premise-based solution as well. So that's actually at the top of our list, and probably be the next product that we provide early next year. That, along with a router, as I mentioned, a purely outdoor access point, a 48-port switch, and a more kind of a directional high-density solution for like stadiums, things like that, is also on our roadmap. So 5 SKUs right now. That should be at least 10 SKUs by sometime next year. Okay, so back to our existing solution though. So what's shipping right now, what's available at EPCOM is these 2 access points. So we've got our AP6 Pro and our AP6. So our AP6 Pro is a 4x4 multi-user MIMO access point on the 5 gigahertz band. It's 2x2 on the 2.4. And then our AP6 is a 2x2 access point on both 5 gigahertz and 2.4. Is one of the main differences, right, between the two models. They are both Wi-Fi 6 access points on both bands though. So they're, a purely Wi-Fi 6 access point. There are some other products out there in the market that are only Wi-Fi 6 on 5 gigahertz, for example, and not on 2.4. But both of our models are Wi-Fi 6 on both bands. The other probably main differentiators between the 2 access points here, the 2 different models here, is our AP6 Pro supports something called 496 QAM, which is actually a Wi-Fi 7 feature. And one of the main features actually of Wi-Fi 7 when that's rolled out will be this support for 496 QAM. Without getting into too much detail, that essentially allows for much higher wireless throughput capabilities. So think of, for example, like a phone streaming YouTube, right, to a TV, or streaming music to another device. That sort of wireless throughput capability is much higher because of this 496 QAM. We worked really closely with Qualcomm on this project. They're the chipset provider for these products. And Qualcomm is actually skipping over Wi-Fi 6E and going straight to Wi-Fi 7. And they wanted to test out this Wi-Fi 7 feature on our products. As far as I'm aware, I think we're the only vendor in the market that has this feature from Qualcomm built in at the moment. This, like I said, this 496 QAM. But it essentially future-proofs the products, right, in a lot of ways. So as Wi-Fi 7 comes out, we'll already support out of the gate, right, natively with these products, one of these biggest features from Wi-Fi 7. The AP6, does not have that Wi-Fi 7 feature built into the chipset, so it supports 1024 QAM. The other big differentiator between the 2 models is the Pro version is IP54 rated, and so it can be used in some outdoor environments as opposed to our AP6, which does not have that IP54 rating. Okay, I'm going to jump over to our switches and just briefly give you guys an introduction to the switches before I jump into and show you what the controller looks like. So switches, as you can see, this is kind of just a placeholder on our website. This page actually will be updated probably within the next week to include more specifics on each model, quick start guides, data sheets, and things like that. We're just a few weeks away from updating this web page to have a lot more information. But as you can see here, we have an 8-port switch, 16-port switch, and 24-port switch that are coming and on their way. Just a few kind of quick statistics or background on these products. The PoE budget is pretty healthy for each of these products. So on the 24-port switch, it's a 240 watt PoE budget. 16 of the ports will support PoE plus, and it will have it'll support 10 gigabit uplinks with this SFP modules right here. The 16-port switch will have 120 watts of PoE budget, and eight of the ports will be PoE plus, and then they'll support SFP or gigabit uplink capabilities right here. And then our 8-port switch will have 60 watts of PoE budget, and 4 of those ports will be PoE plus. Few other just quick notes on kind of the design of the products. As you can see, there's a lot of custom vents built into these switches. We wanted to find kind of the perfect balance between the products being able to run really cool, but also be quiet, right? Usually in the space, switches tend to either be really loud, in order to run cool, or they run hot, but they're quiet. So we wanted to find, like I said, the perfect balance between those two. And so we have a lot of custom vents, including, as you can see, typically SFP modules are stacked on top of each other, whereas we put ours side by side with a little vent above each one. We were able to figure out that those SFP modules are actually one of the biggest heat producers with switches, and so placing them side by side with a vent above each one does a great deal in allowing them to run cool. You'll also notice there's a little button on each of the switches. You can also find this on the back side of our access points as well. So all of our products feature a push reset button feature, so that you don't have to find a special tool or paper clip in order to manually reset, right, or factory reset our products. You will have to hold them down for, I think, about 10 seconds. Obviously, we don't want it to be too easy to reset a device, but we did want to make it a little more user-friendly in that capacity, that you don't have to go find a special tool to reset our products. All right, so that's just a quick overview of the hardware of the products. With about the 15-20 minutes that we have before we want to open it up to questions, I do want to just show you guys what the controller looks like and highlight some of the important features of our controller, how we do some things a little bit more differently and uniquely than others in the space. Here's just the login page. As you can see, you can create your own account, or you can authenticate with Google. And actually, maybe real quick before I jump into the controller, let me just show you guys what you would see when you're first setting up I just have a screenshot here that I'll share. So when you're first setting up an access point for the first time, it's a very, very simple and easy process. In fact, I had an installer in the UK recently post on LinkedIn that he was able to get our access points online, added to his controller in about 15 seconds. And so we aimed to have a very easy to set up process. So when you plug in an access point and then you have the controller opened up on your on a browser, the access point should show up automatically, just as it's showing up here. It'll look just like this, and you'll hit the setup button, and then it's really just a matter of seconds before that access point is online and available to set up an SSID, right, to get everything going. We use an IP address matching solution. So when the access point is plugged in, the first thing that it'll do is it'll reach out for the public IP address, and then it'll match it with the IP address there in the browser. So basically that first access point that you're setting up on site would be physically there on site, and then any additional access point that you add in the future to that particular site won't have to be there physically present. You don't have to be physically present. But that first one, at least if you're using our kind of this IP addressing matching system, you would be there on site. And then we do have a Bluetooth beacon built into each access point and to each switch as well, so that it's basically a backup option if this IP addressing matching system is not working. If you're using like a load balancer, for example, then our Bluetooth functionality, it will be kind of that backup option to be able to add an access point or a switch to the controller. All right, so jumping back into the controller, when you log in, after you already have an access point set up and an SSID set up, then you would be presented with kind of this opening dashboard like this. So this is our network set up at our, apologize for some notifications. I thought I had those all closed before we started, but okay, so you'll be presented with this opening dashboard when you first log in, where you see an overview of what's going on in the network, right? You can see your real-time upload, download speeds. You can also switch to the, seeing historical data, so the last hour, 2 days, 2 months. You can see a quick overview, right, of how many network devices are on the network. So those would be access points and switches. And then the 239 devices here would be mobile devices, computers, things like that. And then you can also see the applications that are open or being used on the network as well. So you can see that 66 are here total applications on the network, and then right here you can see that the top active applications, so the applications that are using the most bandwidth. So you can see here on our corporate headquarters, TikTok is the top active application. It's probably our marketing team, hopefully active at work there. And that's probably, like I said, a really important differentiator for our products to focus on is the fact that you have access to these DPI statistics directly here in the controller with just the purchase of a single access point. The reason being is our access points actually each have, again, apologize for for all my notifications coming through. So each access point has an individual DPI engine built directly into the access point itself. This normally sits at the router level, right? You typically, if you want to have access to a DPI engine, the ability to see these types of statistics or the ability to do filtering or blocking, right? You have to purchase additional hardware, right, in order to get access to those products. Whereas with us, the purchase of a single access point, you can get access to everything, all the features in the controller with just one, with the purchase of one piece of hardware. You get access to the free cloud, right, and then access to the DPI engine as well. So with that being said, I'll actually just briefly show you how the filtering works, right? So if you jump over here to our settings, you can come over here to the filterings tab, and then you can see the two options here to do filtering or blocking websites. You can do so by URL right here. So if you type in like tiktok.com, for example, you can block TikTok that way, or you can block the TikTok application itself, right? Right here in this list. So this list at the top has a very extensive, long list of applications that you can block. In addition to applications themselves, you can also block categories. So if you scroll down far enough, you'll see that one of these blue dots. So for example, chat right here, I can block any chat functionality across the network. So any application that's using chat like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, right, or anything else would be blocked. If I select that. You can also block, for example, like cloud services or a lot of other groups of categories right there as well. And then importantly, I'll show you here in a second, you can actually have these applications blocked by user group as well, or even specific devices if you want to exclude these filtering rules for specific users. you can do that as well. Just for sake of time, I know we won't be able to highlight every single feature here in the controller, but I do want to spend a little bit of time here on our Wi-Fi kind of SSID management page and show you how we do that, because we do this a bit differently than other vendors in the space. I'm going to open up this SSID to give you an idea of what that looks like. So with my SSID, this one's called Sound Vision. I have a few different options, right? I can set up some different passwords, which I'll show you here in a second of how that looks. Or we do support Radius servers as well. So if for those enterprise grade customers, you can connect to a Radius server here. Or in some cases, not too often, if a customer does just want an open network without any password, you can select that there. But coming back over here to the passwords, I want to spend a little bit of time here just highlighting this, because this is probably one of the best examples of how we're trying to think differently and do things differently than the rest of the market and provide some innovation and disruption. Typically, what's done in the space, right, is you have different SSIDs that are set up for different purposes. So at any given place of business, you typically at least have a standard network that's set up, and then a guest network as well that's set up, right? But they're separate SSIDs. In many cases, you might have an IoT network set up for IoT devices, or maybe a security SSID set up for a security system. Before you know it, it's not uncommon, right, at any place of business, or even sometimes in home settings, to have 3 to 5 to sometimes up to 8 different SSIDs set up for different purposes. The problem with that, though, is when you have too many SSIDs being broadcast in a given area, it actually starts to affect the performance of the network and the solution. It creates a lot of RF congestion. And so we wanted to give users the ability to clean up that RF environment and have the ability to have a single SSID with different network types tucked in underneath that SSID that are then accessed by different passwords. So for example, here in this space, I've got my standard network set up that's accessed by this password. I've got a guest network that's set up by a separate password. So if I have someone that visits our campus, or Sound Vision campus, if I give them the guest password, right, they'll then be they'll have to live by the guest policies, but they're able to access that using the same SSID as opposed to a separate SSID. Now, if I wanted to set up an IoT network, for example, on this campus, it's a very, very simple process. So we've created these pre-configured network types, as you can see right here, with some information about each one. We've got our standard network, a network that's optimized for larger, kind of more high density environments, an IoT network that's restricted to internet and local incoming connections only, an internet only setup, and then a guest network. So the guest is basically internet only, but with access to IoT devices like printers and things like that. So here in this case, like I said, if I want to create an IoT network, it's just selecting it from a drop-down menu. So I can select IoT, select a password, for example, and then if I go through and assign this ABC password to any of my cameras or any of my other IoT devices, that'll automatically isolate those IoT devices, right? Sandbox them so that they don't have access to the rest of the network. This is I think a game changer in a lot of ways, especially for maybe like a home user, for example, that doesn't have a lot of experience in networking, or maybe even an installer, for example. Maybe you're more of a security focused installer that doesn't have as much experience with networking, and you're not as familiar on how to set up an IoT network. A lot of VLAN configurations that go into that in order to isolate those IoT devices. And if you don't have that type of experience, the ability to create an IoT network is just not accessible to you. Whereas it's definitely much more secure to create an IoT network. So we wanted to open up that functionality to anybody just by, like I said, by a drop-down menu. You can create this IoT network, create a different password, and then you can easily isolate those IoT devices on your network without having to create different VLANs configurations and things like that. But I should note that that we do give you the ability by password also to set up different VLANs So you can assign VLANs by password. You can also create some download or upload rate restrictions by password as well. And then bypass the hotspot, ignore the schedule, or bypass filtering by password as well. Just to give you maybe a quick use case example of what that would look like. I've got 2 kids at home. They've started using, they've got their tablets, so they're online more than I would like them to be. So with our system, we can set up a scheduler for my kids, and I can also set some filtering rules, right, for my kids as well. But then my wife and I, for example, maybe we don't obviously want to live by that same Wi-Fi schedule, don't want to have the Wi-Fi turned off at 9 p.m., for example, for us, or maybe not have the same filtering rules apply to us. So rather than having a separate SSID for my wife and I and a separate one for my kids, right, I can have the single SSID as I mentioned up here, but then simply bypass the filtering or ignore the schedule for my wife and I and have a separate password for us. I want to show you just maybe 2 other features real quick, and then we'll turn the time over to questions. Here, if I come down to advanced settings, as I mentioned with the scheduler, we do have a scheduler built into the controller. That in and of itself is not unique. Other vendors also have a scheduler, but we do 2 things that are different with our scheduler than other vendors. One, if I schedule the Wi-Fi to turn off here, I selected 8:15 p.m. for example. With other vendors, when you schedule a Wi-Fi to be turned off, the SSIDs themselves stop broadcasting. Whereas with our solution, the SSIDs will continue to broadcast even though the network itself will be turned off, and Wi-Fi access would be turned off. The advantage to having those SSIDs continue to broadcast is if you're using like a home automation system, for example, or a security system, those types of systems need those SSIDs to continue to broadcast in order to continue to function. So rather, again, than having a separate SSID for those systems and a separate one for your Wi-Fi schedule system, you can have the same SSID, right, with the scheduler set up. And then those SSIDs will continue to broadcast and allow for the home automation system or the security system to continue to function. That also allows this feature right here. So it says users can request access during downtime. If you select that to on, that'll allow users to be able to request access to the network when the network is normally scheduled to be turned off, right? So when Wi-Fi access is turned off. So for example, if my kid is up late doing homework, she can request access to have additional time on the network. It'll come through as a push notification to me as the network administrator on my app, or also on the web version here, and then I can approve or deny those requests as they come in. All right, so that we're going to wrap up here just in a second. I just want to show you briefly the other dashboards here in the controller. So this is the devices dashboard where you can see all the different devices on the network. If you click on each device itself, then you can open up the particular changes that you can make on the device level as well. And then here is the network dashboard level, or the network dashboard where you can see the access points and the switches that are online as well. Again, if you click on a particular access point, you can then make changes to the APs separately here. I'll just make one quick note too. Another big differentiator for our solution as opposed to other vendors. If you make changes to, for example, the channel or the bandwidth, or even if you come over here to the scan function and do a quick scan, you have the ability with our solution to make any of these changes or do an RF scan without interrupting the Wi-Fi connection. So changes are actually applied real time with our solution, and RF scans can be done without the network dropping in the process. Which is something that, like I said, is unique and provides a lot of advantages to network administrators because then they don't have to go through and wait till everyone is out of the office, right, to make changes to the network. and avoid disrupting the network, the working environment for users. So for the sake of time, I think we'll wrap up right here. As you can see, there's a lot of other features that we didn't get to. I encourage all of you, of course, to work with EPCOM to get to some access points yourself so you can test out, see the performance and the range that we talked about before, and also start to play with a lot of these unique features that we offer. Like I said, they are different than other vendors. In general, our focus here is to make the products as easy to use as possible, while also saving time for those users that are more advanced, right, that do have a lot more experience. We also want to give you the ability to save time and make life easier for you guys as well. So that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up, and I'll turn the time back over to EPCOM, to Victor.
Thank you, Dallin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all this valuable information from Alta Labs. I think, as you mentioned, there is so much information that we can continue with this webinar, and I think we are going to have a second part for this webinar. So thank you so much, Dallin, and thank you everyone for joining in. For the time, I think we're not going to be able to answer all of your questions at this moment, but if you have any questions about the products or features that Dallin just showed us, please send us a question on the question panel, and we'll be answering them directly to your email. Our engineering team from EPCOM is also part of the webinar, so they will be happy to answer all of your questions. And if you have a project coming up and you need assistance to plan your Wi-Fi network, they're here to help you. So Dallin, for the time, I think we're gonna have to close the session, but we thank you so much for sharing all this information, and we hope to see you in the next session, as well as for Tony.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. And a quick reminder, we're gonna be sending this presentation to your email. Please, any question we have, please, you're gonna be having the information from Dallin as well for the engineering team. Tony, do you want to add anything else?
No, we're good. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to us. As Dallin mentioned, we have all those other support options: phone, email, chat, form, or contact the EPCOM team directly. They'll be able to or direct you directly to us.
Thank you, Tony.